Veda, welcome.
It's so good to be here with you.
So good to be here with you. I thought we could start off the conversation focused on the topic of being spirit-led, because I know that that's something that you and I are. Yeah. And I thought we could talk about the way that we met and the way that we connected.
Yes.
And you might have to help me fill in the gaps here, but I guess to me that is truly being spirit-led. And so I had come across you because I was asked to go on Dr. Tara Hogan's podcast. So I went and had a look at her podcast. I said yes, of course. And the previous episode was with you and Tara. So I was like, amazing, listen to that conversation. And then in between that time, I was on Kelly's podcast, the Spirit Baby Medium.
Yes.
And then she was on mine, and then you were on hers.
Yep.
In like the space of like a week or two. And then I think Kelly said to you.
Yeah, she's like, you need to connect with Anita. So I went to your Instagram immediately, looked it up, and I have a personal profile that I used to use on Instagram just when I was, I don't know, before I started my business. So a few years ago, and I saw that my personal profile was already following you. And anytime that happens, I'm like, I know this person's good because I always already resonated, you know? So I immediately followed you, started looking through all your content. And we just started messaging, and I knew I just resonated with you. Yes. I already resonated with you years ago. So
yes, and you had kind of just come into my field, but I was like, amazing. I need to like dive into everything she's got. And then one of us sent a message to each other, and I think I said like incredible about your podcast interview that you were on. Mm-hmm. And then we started chatting, and I was like, we need to catch up. So then the craziest bit happened. I said we need to, like, it'd be awesome if we could have a chat on the podcast. And then Veda says, I'm actually going to be in Sydney.
Yes. So the stars truly aligned where, we just happened to be here for 5 days. Me and my family, we travel a lot. That's really we love traveling. We love seeing the world. That's how I want to raise my children, is just showing them the world. And so the stop here you just so happen to live a couple hours south, which I just think is actually amazing that you drove 2 hours. Is that a 2-hour drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm on the south coast.
So cool.
But honestly, it's not unusual. A lot of people that live down there drive to Sydney to work. So anyway, it was a pleasure to come up here. So we're here. And the biggest reason I wanted to have, so many reasons I want to have a conversation, but a lot of my community are free birthing women. And the question that I get asked a lot is, how did you get a birth certificate for your son? Because I free birthed my son. And how does that whole thing work? And I actually had a few podcasts back, was talking to Abby, who focuses on financial sovereignty, but you focus on full sovereignty, what do we call that? Sovereign citizen.
Oh, I don't like that term necessarily. That I don't know why that one irks me, just because you're either sovereign or you're a citizen.
True.
Pick one.
Yes.
And they've kind of created sovereign citizen, just that term itself, as kind of a derogatory term, kind of like anti-vax or whatever. You know, they kind of make it sound.
They have too now I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other things that they've kind of made derogatory. I know I have a list in my back pocket that I'm like totally going blank on.
Well, I've heard you say circumcised and uncircumcised.
Yes.
Instead of like circumcised and intact.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they've kind of done this wordplay, but yes, that whole idea of really the birth certificate is an energetic contract. And so there is that component. So
yes. And so I really want to dive into that with you at some stage. I do have a lot of US women in my community. So the women that have asked me are Australian, because there's not a lot of information about that here in Australia, and I do know it's different. But we will touch on that. Where I wanted to go first though was speaking about the placenta and placenta energetics and the cord. Where would you like to start with that?
Oh, I mean, the placenta in itself is just like this organ that is not honored the way it should be. It's been called afterbirth for a reason, because they want, again, to make your mind think a certain way about it, that it's just this after, not, I was led to what's called a lotus birth with my first baby. I knew nothing about anything about birth. I'll just say that when I got pregnant with him. He guided the way. Every day I created this ritual in the shower where I would connect with him, and I would say, okay, I don't know anything. Show me what I need to know to bring you into the world the way you need. So the things that started showing up, I just kind of was led, you know? Yeah. So I found this thing called lotus birth. And what lotus birth is when you leave the baby, the umbilical cord, and the placenta all attached until it naturally falls off. So at the time I was seeing a midwife, and so I asked her about it so I could learn a little bit more, because it was really hard to find information on the internet. There really isn't a lot of information. And even my midwife was like, you know, I've heard of this. I don't know anyone that's done it. So even then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to figure this out, because my baby's saying this is what they need. And it sounded weird to me at first. Like the whole concept of it is like, okay, I don't know. And very inconvenient, I will say. But I just trusted the guidance. I just knew, like, I was all in on this guidance. So
I love the way you also say it is supposed to be inconvenient. Why is it supposed to be convenient post-birth?
Yes. Yeah, because I started really thinking about all the things that we've created out of convenience with our babies, right? Bottles, pacifiers, all those different things. And I, in my background in dental hygiene, I already knew, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do those things because of just how important it is for mouth development, blah, 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 all these things. Yeah. Really, my basis, I will say, is, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever read the Ringing Cedars of Russia series?
No.
Oh, it's so good. Anyone listening needs to read these books because they really changed my life. My baseline has been like, what did our pristine ancestors live like?
Yeah.
You know, the ones that were just so connected to nature, so connected with God. They knew because they're intuition led, right? So everything that I was thinking as far as becoming a mother and growing this baby, what would my pristine ancestors have done? Everything was connection. So I started thinking, you know, if I was the first woman on earth to have a baby and I trusted the whole process and this beautiful baby came out and the next thing came out of placenta, would I think in that moment suddenly that I needed to cut that, or would I think it was meant to be connected? You know, and my initial intuition says I would trust the design, you know, and I'd be pleasantly surprised when a few days later it just naturally fell off and just think it was always meant to be that way. You know?
The way when the baby's ready.
Yes. So it is kind of interesting because then I started backtracking on this concept of like, when did we even begin thinking it needed to be cut in the first place? When did that become a thing? Because that clearly was an intervention that came in later. Because anyone just having a baby, you would think it was, unless... it's hard because my mind goes a few different places because we're thinking instinct, right? My instinct says I would leave it attached. Then there is this, you know, people come in with this animal instinct because they think, okay, we see a lot of animals that eat the placenta.
Yeah.
But then my mind also went to, okay, well, animals eat their placenta because they're actually keeping prey away from their babies.
Yeah.
So their purpose is very different than the reasons we do. I instinctually didn't look at my placenta and want to eat it. That, you know, so. Same. But then some people do.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is you'll encapsulate it. You'll do all these different things. Is that, I don't know. The reasons people are encapsulating and eating their placentas now are for the nourishment, postpartum hemorrhaging, all those different things. Yeah. And is that if we're having a gentle birth, are those things we'd need to do?
Yeah. And I even think about when I had my daughter and I had my placenta encapsulated and I took them because I was low in iron, and that was for the nourishment was the intention.
Yeah.
But then it messed things up because it wasn't the natural cycle and I had too much milk and and it just kind of changed the flow of maybe how things would have unfolded.
Yeah.
But so there are benefits, but that whenever you interfere, there is always a side effect. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because there are it's so beautiful though that there is a way that was designed that if you were low on your breast milk or whatever, that there is a thing that can help you. But this concept of this placenta actually is your baby's life force. Okay, they share a DNA blueprint. Like they are identical twins. And as I started researching even more on ancient practices on the placenta and the energetics of the placenta, there's this concept or idea that it is the spirit, what do you even want to call it? Like a spirit guide of the baby.
It's an entity in
Yes,
itself.
it really does. And it truly
Yeah.
does have a whole soul to itself. I kid you not, doing the lotus birth with my baby, like breastfeeding him, you're seeing this placenta like pulse. There is so much connection. Anytime you touch the placenta, you clearly can see the baby can feel it.
Yeah.
They are one. So it's just this incredible connection they clearly have. And this concept of the spirit brings the baby into the earth, and that spirit continues to watch over that baby throughout their life in the energetic realm.
Yeah.
And then that spirit is also the one to transition them to the next.
Yeah.
So I loved that concept. There are a lot of different concepts I loved about the lotus birth, but just this energetic spirit and doing it intentionally that way, it was very clear to me the energetic, first of all, connection between that spirit and baby and just the both of them and how special that was. And knowing what I knew, I couldn't disconnect that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Should we touch on then the possible agenda of starting the disconnection between mother and baby? Because for me, that's where I see everything ties in. And then I see the way that unfolds, throughout a child's life and the mother's life when there is that disconnection. And
Absolutely.
the possible agenda behind that.
Yes, there's definitely agenda, for sure. We say possible, but there's no doubt to me. Everything about birth, is sabotaged purposefully.
Yep.
And anytime you're cutting that connection, so we know there's circuits, right? Meridian circuits in our body. There is a reason why our gut feeling is right here. Mm-hmm. There is an energetic circle that goes through the placenta and back to baby, and that is their intuition, this connection, this knowing that they're always being advocated for in the energetic realm.
Yep.
Okay. So when we disconnect that, what does that do to a spirit? It makes us fear death. It makes us fear all sorts of things. So we are disconnected. Mm-hmm. So not only is this a connection between baby and their own intuition, it's also a connection between mother and baby. This energetic connection between the two of them. So now we're disconnecting that too. Mm-hmm. And there is a purpose why it's a ritual. We'll say it's a disconnection ritual. No matter how you choose to disconnect, it's a ritual. Interesting that generally it's traditionally done by the father. And the father is the one that's now disconnecting the baby and mother, and how that plays in the energetic space.
Into disconnecting the family, yeah.
Yeah. Instead of really his purpose is to keep that bond and protect that energy,
Throwing dad under the bus at the beginning.
Yeah. Which is actually so interesting when you really think on the flip side of having a lotus birth, keeping baby and the placenta attached close to mother. There really is this sense of dad is that protector, and he is keeping that bubble together, So it's just interesting how they've tricked the families into ritualizing this disconnection that way. Really, for me, another reason why I know I was really led to lotus birth in general is because I was born disconnected from my mother. Yeah. Energetically, physically, I was, disconnected from my own umbilical cord before I was ready, but I felt so deeply how I wanted to stay connected with my baby that way. And that was so important to me. So I feel like I feel like a lot of our purpose in life is our generation. Is to experience the trauma, see it for what it is, and alchemize it. And I know that was my purpose for my babies, was to be able to alchemize, seeing that, knowing that I wasn't connected and I was going to keep that connection with my babies was really important. I do want to make a note, too, while I'm talking about that. If anyone listening is feeling, I think there's always going to be some feelings, a little bit of mourning when you didn't know certain information. Yeah. That connection can always be reconnected. Yeah. So if anyone's feeling like, okay, I missed out, you can reconnect yourself, but all it requires is intention. So I would just want to kind of make that note. There also are rituals and things like ceremonies that, I don't know if we want to talk about it now, but things that you can do to kind of reconnect that energetic connection with your babies that may have been disconnected.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I think I think we've seen like an attempt to do that with rituals, even, you know, the closing of the bones and the blessing way and all of those beautiful things, which I do a lot of those things in my business too. But these are specific ones. These are specific reconnection and really deep shadow work in a sense, because I like the word you use about that fracturing of the mind. And there is also an agenda in terms of that, isn't there? Did you want to speak to that a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Any of the rituals, the damaging or traumatic rituals that have been instilled and brought in.
Yes. I mean, trauma fractures the mind, right? Yeah. What makes us think that cutting this baby that is connected isn't traumatic? So doing a lot of this rebirth experiencing your own birth, there is a trauma that comes with this cutting of the umbilical cord. There is a trauma, and more traumatized people are easier to control.
Yep.
And if anyone's ever like gone into the whole MK Ultra realm, right? It's been proven, and specifically the MK Ultra is drug induced and trauma induced mind control, where the more times you can traumatize a person, they fragment your mind and you can easily control them. So there is a definite reason why they're doing this first on newborns. This disconnection between mothers. I mean, think about the repercussions of just that moment, sabotaging that specific moment, and how important, they know how important it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I get led down the paths of listening to Survivor's story of MK Ultra and SRA and all of that. And I know that like listening to those stories is opening my heart and opening my capacity to be able to bring more light in to try and change that. Yeah. But I think I only just made the connection, maybe even this morning thinking about it, that like all of these rituals have the same intention. They all have the same intention, so that there's a generation of children that grow up that can be, you know, they're soldiers or whatever it is. Should we talk about, is it too deep to go to the origin of that? Do you see that as like a spiritual warfare, or do you...
Like origin of disconnecting us?
Who they is.
Oh.
Where the agenda is coming from.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that does go pretty deep. Where really, think about it. Who wants to control us? Who wants us as busy bee workers just losing who we are? We forgot who we were. And I feel like that right now is the awakening that cannot stop, is we are awakening to our truth. But reading the Ringing Cedars series really, to me, awoke a part of me of understanding who they was and the history of that. And it's an 8-series book, and I can't even, or 9, actually 10 books. Can't put into words even the... I don't know. I just encourage everyone to read that series because it resonated.
It's been happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
And we've been taught that we are the most evolved species, when really we are the most dumbed down species compared to who we were and what we are capable of.
Conditioned and programmed.
Yes. The fact that we forgot who we are, we are created by the creator. Okay. We have all the inherent abilities of the creator, and we forgot all of it.
So when you say we forgot, are you talking about this? Because I went to 2 places then. I went back to the star origin, and then I went back to the primal human, both.
Both. Yeah. Yes, it is both, because we are multidimensional, right? So there is this whole disconnection of both, who are our origins are beyond this realm, and our origins in this sacred realm.
Yeah. Why don't we weave that into now then the choice to become sovereign, and maybe just sharing a little bit of your journey around that and how you awakened to that, because I truly, the way I've heard you speak about it is spirit-led, and you didn't logic yourself out of it. You were like, my baby's leading me here. I'll trust the next piece and the next piece and the next piece, kind of how we arrived here today. That's why I like explaining that as a metaphor. But tell us that journey of how you went on that with your own babies.
Yeah. So, I mean, just as I said before, it was this, okay, show me the way. And I can't remember the quote, but basically it's like the path, as you walk the path will become clear. I didn't know any of this, but I just trusted that as I continued to walk, the path would become clear. And my first baby, he showed me so much about the truth about birth in itself. Okay. So I spent my whole pregnancy uncovering and unpacking the truth about birth and the ancestral part and all of that stuff. I spent my time learning my own birth story, learning my generational stuff, clearing all that stuff so I could bring this baby onto Earthside emotionally free. Okay. So I spent that time, and then it was time for the birth certificate. And I had heard a few things about the birth certificate, about how it makes your baby a ward of the state and whatnot. But also I knew that my job as a mother was to not inhibit him in different ways. And at that time I didn't know enough because I spent my whole pregnancy like focusing on birth. There's just so much to unpack about birth itself that I never, just knowing what the birth certificate was, I like had knots in my stomach about it. But at the same time, with my first birth, I had a licensed midwife, and she was like, hey, well, within the first 10 days, you got to get that done. And, you know, now knowing what I know, there's a reason why they gave you those 10 days. Okay. They don't give you time to think about it. Because at that point, I'm like, hey, now I have a baby. Now I want to think about that next step. I don't have time to.
And they don't tell you until then. I had the same thing with my daughter. You need to get to the GP in 5 days. And I wish I never took her out of the house. It was so traumatic for her. And yeah, you have to be there. I wish I had asked the question as well. Or what?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, they'll tell you it's illegal and they'll tell you all these different things. But you don't realize that as men and women, it's not.
Yeah.
You have rights, but the licensure that you invited into your birth, their license requires it.
Yeah.
So they're really like bullying you because their license is at stake. So there's kind of that whole part, right? But really, you know, when you have a baby, it takes days to come back to this realm.
Sometimes weeks.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. At least, I mean, I would say definitely more than 10 days. I'm going to take a quick blurb here, and I will say that was one of the special things about a lotus birth is it clearly, like, to me was so like my feet landed on the ground the moment that disconnection happened, where it was like we're on Earth. That was so cool to like physically feel that expansion. But you really are, you travel realms to get your baby. You're not back on Earth. And when they're suddenly within hours sometimes telling you, okay, now sign this registration, they want to get that done quick. And I'm thinking most people in a hospital birth, they're saying that within the first 2 days.
Yeah.
I know for certain you are not back on Earth in those first 2 days. Yeah. So anyway, there's a reason why they're encouraging you to just get that thing done within those first 2 days. But for me, it was like, okay, well, I don't have time to now learn what will take years for me to learn on how I can successfully raise my baby without a birth certificate. So I felt pressured to. I filled out the information. I never signed it because that like made me feel better. But really, just the more I learned post is that acquiescence is consent. So he ended up with a birth certificate, and my next baby, when I got pregnant with him, he came in so clear. Like, I need to be born without a birth certificate. So I was like, okay, well, show me that. So I got to, now because my first pregnancy, I had unpacked birth, I got to spend my whole next pregnancy unpacking the birth certificate and how I would raise him successfully without one. So that really was his clear coming in on, the clear phrase he gave me was, I need to be born free.
Well, so sorry, same as my son.
That's amazing.
I tied that to free birth, but I can share that in a minute. Yes. We also did start the sovereign route. That's so crazy. Exact same wording.
Oh, I'm telling you, I just like got goosebumps all over my body here, because that really is the babies coming in really are coming in to usher in a whole new era.
Yep.
And so when he said I need to be born free, I was like, okay. I knew I was going to have free birth too, because at the end of my first birth, I was like 36 weeks. I had been telling my midwife, I was like, I actually think I want to have a free birth, but I never have even been around birth or known anyone else too. So my midwife was actually really great, and probably the only one that I even know of that was licensed, that was like, I'll be in the hallway. You call me in if you want to. That was kind of my compromise with not knowing, but she truly actually did honor me, which was cool.
Yeah.
But knowing my next birth, I was like, I knew I was going to have a free birth, but like what beyond that, it really unraveled this whole, like, I got to sit with what does it even mean to be free? You know, there is this like physical aspect. Well, I'm not in chains. I'm not behind bars, but realizing the mental slavery, taxes, what else? Just, the mental fragmentation of us. And luckily my first little one showed me the emotional free, right? Because knowing that if I was passing on my emotional stuff to him, he wasn't born free. So there's so many different components of physically free, spiritually free, mentally free, and knowing that this birth certificate is an energetic contract meant to siphon our energy and really that's what's tied to your taxes too, right? And that alone is this energetic siphoning of your money. And all money is your life force, your currency. So knowing what I could keep him from if I didn't make that decision to tie him to the system, knowing that if I could set him up in a way that he could make that choice on his own later, that was his choice. I didn't want to take that from him. So I discovered a way, as I was led by him and just trusting his guidance, that there is a whole other realm and a way that you can lawfully record your birth just like our ancestors have done since the beginning.
And I just love that you became a minister.
Yes.
Feel this.
Yes. And honestly, it's the whole reason I became a minister is because I could provide resources for other people. And what's actually really interesting too is I'm not even part of an organized religion. I don't believe in organized religion personally. But what is interesting is your religious beliefs, no matter what they are, it could be in the universe and the cosmos and just universal love. Your religious beliefs are recognized by the government, and they have to be.
Yeah.
So, even my baptism certificates are baptism in the universal idea of perfection. And they are recognized by the government, which is amazing. So that's the whole reason why I became a minister, to offer those resources to other people, that these religious documentation or records actually hold more weight than a birth certificate does.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It's wild. And what's even more wild is so many of these agents out there have no idea. And until you start coaching them on how to do their own job that they weren't taught, they are surprised that, sure enough, a baptism certificate or a family Bible and these different things that I show people how to do are better than a birth certificate. And until you can just energetically, lovingly connect with that agent and you're showing them how to do their job, right? Because they're first going to meet you with resistance, is kind of what I've found. But the only way through that is you are connecting with love and you're setting that intention first with them and you're showing them. Now you're just opening a whole new door of all these other mothers and fathers that can then do that for their babies too. So
I think some people have a lot of trouble seeing how the medical system and organized religion are so tied together. But if you understand back in the day and the whole witch woundings and all of that, if you know the origins of that, you understand how it's still happening today.
Absolutely.
They're so tied together.
Yes, they are one and the same.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I think people now find that really hard to believe because they seem so separate, but they're not. It was the same agenda.
Yeah.
Same agenda of control.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when my own awakening story started with a medical crisis for myself. So I unraveled this whole, the truth about the medical system. And the very next thing that I unraveled in my life was my religious programming. So I lost my religion once I unraveled all of this. And that was, the next thing was birth. And then the next thing was, it just kind of all is
all
intertwined.
The institutions.
Yes.
So had you finished your story of then moving into being a minister and how?
Really. Yeah. That was, just so I could provide other resources for other people looking to do the same. Cause there are a lot of people that are religious that come to me, and it's like, if you want to get your own baptism through your religion, that's great. Use that. But there are a lot of people out there that are on the same path as you and I that don't believe in organized religion, but they still want to have these pieces of secondary documentation that the state sees as identification outside of organized religion. That's the whole reason I became a minister. I never saw that on my path purpose. I guess 10 years ago, I never would have imagined I'd be a minister, but I am a minister.
To move out of religion, then become a minister.
Yes.
It's almost like using however you tried to use it against me, I now use it as my power.
Yes. Yes, I love how you just said that.
Yeah, to help other parents. And now where do we go? I really want to talk about the intactness of a baby, because I see it all tying into the same of spiritual sovereignty and coming through, and also the nature piece as well. So I see, it all comes together. Where should we start with that?
Well, just as you were saying before, everything is tied, okay? It is just as tied as the lotus birth, the umbilical cord, this placenta. Like, when did we decide that we were born imperfect? You know, you have this perfect baby boy. When did we decide? And what kind of, a lot of it is this religious programming. We've decided that they weren't perfect and we actually needed to remove a part of them.
Do you see that moment as, ooh, this could be profited off?
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. And that's what's so interesting.
Hang on a minute. If this unfolds without me, I don't get any money for this, but I could like create some issues here and solve the problems and then get paid for it.
Yes. So I'll first say there is a huge, first off, energetic component to cutting a baby. But second, the piece, they sell foreskin and they make money from it. They are putting it in your face creams and all these different things. They are selling, they have foreskin facials.
I know. Women would die if they actually knew.
Yes.
Some of the
And what's even crazier is there are women that know.
Yeah.
And they're that disconnected with realizing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That we're making money on babies' foreskin.
And
like,
placentas.
let that sit for a second.
Yeah. And placentas.
Yes, I wanted to go back to that because they're selling placentas, they're put in pharmaceuticals, they're put in youth creams, they're selling your baby's blood and stem cells, and they're making over $50,000 per placenta.
Yeah.
So there's a whole component there, and there's a whole reason why they're telling us we don't need placentas. It's after birth. It's gross. You don't want that. Mm-hmm. There's also, and just brought me to the whole concept of, too, how they kind of create your straw man through the state owns your DNA by owning the placenta as well.
Explain that.
So they legally own your DNA. They are the owners of your DNA because it is the biological DNA twin of the baby. So now that they own this as property, they also own your baby's DNA as property. It's one and the same. And
can we just say to women how easily this can happen? So it's so easy to say if you end up in the hospital and you birth, you can say, I want to have my placenta. Let me just explain sometimes how that goes down. You're on the table, maybe you've been brought into emergency C-section. Can you please keep my placenta? That's what I've got on my birth plan. We don't do that here. Full stop.
Yep.
How is a mother supposed to fight for that? You know, if there's a father there, he's like, I'm just thinking about the survival of my, partner and child, and it's just, like you said, treated like it's nothing, but it's so significant. Mm-hmm. That's how easily it can be said,
Yeah.
When there's an agenda, that's how easily you can be like, get out of the picture.
Yep.
Mother. We don't,
Yeah. And they know. And also too, I'll say the lower level workers maybe don't really know, but they've part of the policy. They've been groomed to know, even at some points when mothers are like, oh, hey, I want my placenta. And they're like, oh, we've already contaminated it, so you can't have it. They're quickly doing things so that's long gone. And then they're donating it because it would be, unethical to sell a placenta. Yeah. But they're donating it for
medical research.
Yes, for money.
You know what I was just thinking about as well, because it's so true. I understand this concept, but you say it a lot, that if you look at everything as a business, it's so easy to understand. Yes. And even if you think about the lower level workers within a hospital system, just say, there is an absolute tactic of hierarchy and divide and conquer. Keep the doctors and the midwives fighting and then not watching what we're doing over here.
Yes.
It's so obvious to me that, sometimes I think, how do we not see that?
Yep.
And so the midwives are fighting for their position, and it's just this whole, split them into divide and conquer. You have your little scuffle over there.
Yes.
We're harvesting placentas and foreskins over here.
Yes. Yes. Keep people
and keep
so
the mother
distracted.
traumatized.
Yes. See, they're coming at us in a million different ways.
Yeah.
Birth is sabotaged. We're sabotaged during even the prenatal, even the conception. A lot of times is sabotaged, right? You know the importance of this conscious conception and the intention on that and the imprints that goes on baby. But it's just beyond that, right? Like what they put in our water, the air, the food, blah, blah, all the things. I want to say it's incredible the way they've targeted us, and how amazing though our bodies are.
Yeah.
And how we can still heal from all of it. It just first takes awareness.
Yes. I was listening to something the other day about frequencies and how we have actually calibrated beyond 5G. So it was used as a harmful frequency, but our bodies have adapted and we can be okay with it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't beat nature.
Yes. Yes. But first and foremost too, though, realizing that these things can harm us because first of all, we're not aware of it, or we are aware of it and we're afraid of it. So those are two things. But what we've forgotten is that we are the masters of the universe. Again, like I said, we're created by the creator. And if we remembered who we were, that's a moment where we can say no, because there is a universal law that requires consent.
Yes.
And they know that.
Free will.
They know that. So by us not knowing, or by saying yes and believing that it is greater than us, we are saying yes.
Yeah, because fear is in both of those. Yeah. They would say we do know because
they've told us in a million different ways.
Yeah.
They've told us in movies. They've told us through the consent forms. They've told us. So we do consent. We are saying yes.
Right.
So I think the moment first and foremost of we saying it out loud even, no, I don't consent, suddenly you've regained your power. And even those frequencies that they're putting in the air and all the things, you can actually say no.
Yeah.
No.
100%.
And then go beyond that and transmute it and make it beautiful.
Yes. Turn it around and yes. That's what I do too.
We can do it with everything. We just have to remember who we are. So I don't ever want to like talk about these things as like these fearful things. First of all, we do need awareness in the agenda, what's happening, but don't think it's greater than us. Nothing's greater than us. We are the greatest at.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about, well, actually I wanted to ask you, when you had kind of your awakening and so many of us go down the savior route. How did you shift that? Because it was about 2007 for me, a bit of a dark night of the soul, and I did go through that for a few years. How did you move through that? And sometimes I dip back in and I'm like, come back out.
That's a wonderful, for me, it was more of the religious programming for me, realizing how many different ways I was looking out. Well, first, again, my story begins with the medical system, because I was looking for a savior in a million different ways to heal me, figure out what's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And so when I was getting passed around from doctor to doctor to doctor and no one could figure it out, ultimately they were like, you have a brain tumor. We take a MRI, nothing shows up, but they're still certain maybe it's not big enough to show up, and I need to be on this brain tumor medication forever.
Did you want to share a bit of that story?
Sure.
Because it's so relevant. My own awakening was searching for answers, and then it was such a blessing they didn't have them.
Yes.
And I realized, they don't have them.
Yes.
I have to go find them.
I had to break fully, when I realized there were no answers for me. And really that's kind of how it led. I had major gut issues. I had, I was having these hormonal, like I was lactating and growing a beard, okay, all at the same time. I had never been pregnant. And also I couldn't go to the bathroom. Every 2 weeks, maybe. I actually had to get colonics twice a week just to like release all of our money. I was a newlywed. I actually don't even know how we survived that time because my husband was still in college. I was the only one working, and all of our money went towards me getting colonics. Wow. Okay. And paying for doctors really to try and figure this out. And I had a doctor that was
at least it was an alternative route.
Yes. But also I wasn't looking for alternative. I was just like, what is going to get this out of me? I was very much medical minded. Okay. At that time in my life, I was very the opposite of who I am now. So I always say never because everything I said I would never be, that's what I am now. I'm a minister. No.
Just parenting 101.
Yes, really. I was very a believer in the medical industry, and you are dumb if you don't just listen to your doctors. That was my mindset. So I was looking for the doctors to save me. And I had a doctor that told me I just needed to remove my colon. And I couldn't pay for that. So luckily I went to colonics.
How old?
24. No, 20. I got married when I was 25. So just 25, 26.
Just take it out.
Just take it out. Just remove it. That's the answer. I just remember crying. And so I was seeing doctors. They kept putting me on different hormones. I was put on testosterone from one. I did that. And mind you, I actually started my journey before I got married. So it was probably around 22 or 23 that I kind of started this medical being put on hormones. I'd kind of follow a doctor for a year, and when things didn't get better after a year, I'd find another one, and they were like, oh no, it's not your thyroid, it's your adrenals. We need to put you on these other hormones. You need to be on progesterone, and you need to be on all these different things, estrogen. So I do that for a year, and then finding another doctor that was like, no, you have a pituitary tumor. Again, it doesn't even show up on an MRI, but he's like, there's nothing else it could be because you're lactating and you've never been pregnant. So it just must be smaller than a fingernail, and it's just not showing up. So I put me on tumor medication. And also, mind you, I had been on birth control since I was 15.
Yeah.
So that is another component. I've also went through dental hygiene school, did a lot of humanitarian trips. I had a lot of injections through that time as well. I got the HPV.
Yeah.
You name it. What is this perfect storm?
I mean, it could have just been that. It could have just been the HPV. That's bad enough.
Yeah. And then I got an IUD. So, what else was it? None of those things were ever questioned, though, anytime I ever saw a doctor. Yeah. Not one. So eventually I was actually taking brain tumor medication for a whole year. And I mean, my doctor said I'm going to have to be on this for life. And I probably couldn't ever have kids. But also I needed to be on birth control if I was on this tumor medication. So that was, anyway, nothing made sense. And I kind of look back and I laugh at all of it because I'm like, how did I actually just go along with all this for a year?
I just want to say 2 ladies sitting here that both have 2 children have both been told you'll probably never have children. Me too.
Yeah. When these babies need to come, they're going to pick their...
Yeah. And also they might be wrong. They might be wrong.
Yes, they are wrong. They are wrong. And if you can't have babies, your body's speaking something to you. And don't listen to the doctor, listen to yourself. And that finally, after a year, that's when I finally, I actually had a doctor tell me, because I was crying after a year of things weren't getting better. And he was like, hey, well, you're fine. And I kept telling him, I'm not fine. Nothing's gotten better. And he told me at that point, he's like, well, maybe you need to see a psychiatrist.
Oh, it's in your head.
Yeah, it's in my head. And luckily I had finally brought my husband to that appointment because it was so frustrating for me to go to these appointments and then to come home and tell him why I just needed to spend more money and nothing was getting better. Yeah. So I cried to him, and bless his heart, he was like, listen, you're lactating and you're growing a beard. This is physical. And I'm like, okay, yes, you're right.
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because this guy's telling me I'm crazy, but actually maybe I am crazy. And that actually brought me on this emotional journey. Luckily, I didn't go see a psychiatrist. I actually went and started unpacking my emotions and how my emotions were affecting the physical and realizing that everything is spiritual before it's physical. And I'm grateful for that whole journey of just like realizing all of that.
Thank you, Louise Hay.
Right?
She's such an angel.
Yes. Yeah. All of these things that, part of the journey of me awakening. And through that journey, I was like, no, there was this deep knowing in my bones. I was just right on the edge of a breakthrough, and recognizing that this lactation and growing a beard was clear signs that my masculine and feminine energy was so out of whack.
Yeah.
And knowing that, I had actually been living in my masculine energy my whole life out of, this need to protect myself or whatever, but realizing I'm like, I'm ready to embrace this feminine version of me. And that was kind of my daily meditation, was ready to embrace this feminine me. And the next thing, I got pregnant. So, in hindsight, I didn't realize that was what I was praying for. But of course it was.
Yeah. I'm
right?
just thinking about a doctor's appointment. I've got these things going on. Listen, you just need to balance your masculine and feminine.
Yes.
Receiving that as a diagnosis.
It really is.
It's out of this world.
If someone would have told me that, though, before all this, I would have been like, yeah, and then went to another doctor. Like, for me, I really had to go into the depths of, thinking I was absolutely broken, and then look around and realize I was never broken. The system was broken, which was really interesting, actually, because as I started taking that responsibility, instead of finding a savior in every one of the doctors that was supposed to save me, and I was just begging for someone else, finally deciding I'm actually going to start looking at the food I'm eating. I'm going to start looking at what I'm injecting into my body. And what's actually crazy is I uncovered this when I was 5 years old. I got this thing called ITP, and it's called idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. I was bleeding all the time, like hour-long bloody noses. My whole lips turned into cold sores. Like, I had black lips, and I would touch something and I would bruise. Like, I got to this point, my parents got really concerned, but all the doctors kept telling me I was fine. So they kept sending me home. And my dad finally was like, something's not right. So he started looking into medical books, and he found this thing, ITP, in a medical book that was, I guess the next stage was leukemia. But he finally took me in and was refused to leave. And they finally found that I had this ITP, and that if I hadn't have come in that night, I would have died from internal bleeding from my head on the pillow, the pressure. So thank goodness. Anyway, they were like, we don't know if this is going to work, but we'll give her hemoglobin, and hopefully that works. It did, luckily. But they told me I could get this thing in other times of my life, like starting my period or having a baby. Anytime there was major bleeding, that I could just bleed to death, because this idiopathic, what it means is we have no idea.
Yeah, that's what it means.
So it's really interesting. I got this ITP, and I was meant to be afraid of this bleeding for the rest of my life. It didn't come back, but what was interesting is I was reading through inserts for vaccines. What's the side effect?
Yeah.
Idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. So all of a sudden, all these dots started connecting in my mind, where I was like, I had just gotten my 5-year-old shots. But they had no idea what it was idiopathic. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was kind of like all of these dots started connecting to me on how 20 years later, realizing I had an injury myself as a child, and I didn't even know it until now. So all these things just started revealing to me on the savior aspect of it. And that's really when I honed in on, oh my gosh, I need to start taking responsibility of my life. My body knows how to heal. I just need to stop putting garbage in it and let it heal. So that really was the whole, for me, the savior started with the doctors. And there's so many other ways now. I've seen the savior complex come in and out. For me, when was it, 2016, I thought Trump was going to save the world. And now letting that
Oh yeah, I went there.
You feel me? You kind of have to go along the journey, right? To of this outsourcing to realize.
I absolutely got caught up in it again.
Yeah, this whole realization too of not
the book written about Barron.
Yes,
and
the whole rabbit hole.
One of the Kennedys, he didn't really die. He was in the crowd. I was so there.
Yeah. So, and there are still people in that realm too, thinking that someone else is going to come save us.
He's not even out.
Okay, I didn't even connect the two.
He's not even out. He's in another
Trump's
country.
Gonna save the world? No.
He's going to save us over here in Australia too.
Yeah. No. And then just realizing I'm grateful for the awakening and the things that I think he revealed to me in so many different ways, but also realizing that we are going to save us. We already are saving us. And I'm grateful for my babies coming through, that because they are coming in to usher in a new era, and all these other women bringing in babies are feeling called to the same thing.
Right.
And I think that's actually the most magical part about what I do right now is seeing all these women that come to me and they're like, I'm pregnant. I don't know anything about this path or this life, but I was led to you.
Yeah.
And my baby's saying they need to be born this way. So show me what that means. It's just so cool seeing this, like what these babies are ushering in right now is incredible. And we're the vessels listening. It's so cool.
Yeah, but we're not just the vessels, we're the portal for them. So we have to do the work because yeah.
And just like you've said, I've heard you say that we have to hold this frequency to be able to hold this frequency of the babies, which I know for certain, looking back on my whole journey of finally being ready to embrace this feminine, it took me a whole journey of knowing my power to finally be ready to hold the frequency of the baby that was going to come through me.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm so grateful for that whole journey of going to the depths of everything to finally come to where I am.
I was just thinking about, all the things that these babies are bringing through in terms of upgrading us. And there are so many more women now that are saying, I'm communicating with my baby. And I wondered what that looked like for you, because I really like speaking about that so that mothers, in case they have like a fixed idea of what that looks like, they can understand that it's a whole realm. Like my daughter communicated with me differently to my son. He was far more clearer and present as a spirit, but she was like through nature and through more subtle inklings. So what was it like for you?
Yeah. For me, I just knew that if I asked for the guidance, I could put it down completely and then knew it was going to show up in any way. So a lot of it showed up through an Instagram post or a book that I was just guided to look at, or a random person at the store.
Yeah.
Again, I was working as a hygienist, so a random patient that walked into my office, I just knew it was coming in everywhere. So when I set the intention at the beginning of every day and I knew it was coming, I expected it.
Yeah.
So I think not having that intention first, it can seem like anything could be a coincidence. But knowing that that was my intention and it was coming through, I knew it was the synchronicity.
Yeah.
In every way. And I didn't ever hear words. It came to me in other ways through feelings. Like even that I need to be born free was never spoken to me. It was like felt through me. And I can't even,
well, even
I don't know.
Telepathy can be described the same way. And that's why I like to speak about it, because I think mothers think that it may be clear words. For some people it is, but often it's not. And when they're looking for that, they're missing the feelings and the senses and the knowing over here, because it's not really logic.
Yeah.
And you have to trust it. And I guess I wanted to talk also about, like, honestly, when you are conceiving, that is the first opportunity you have to trust your child and reverse the dynamics.
Yes. I love that you said that, because for me, that was the ultimate test for me to learn to trust myself, actually, was through my pregnancy. With my second baby, I was like, I want to trust myself so much that I don't even take a pregnancy test. Because I was on this journey of coming back to me, that my body was telling me things. Like, to me, it felt like I would be betraying my body even if I took a pregnancy test, just in case, because it already told me. Actually, in that moment of conception, I already called this soul in, right? We all three, me and my husband and this baby, we all did this. So for me to even like take a pregnancy test felt like such a betrayal. So I chose in that moment, I was like, I'm just going to go all in, and I'm going to just trust, this entire pregnancy, never see any midwife or ever do a scan or anything like that, because I'm going to connect with my baby every single day. And if my baby guides me to that, then I will. But any like routine thing felt wrong.
Yep, to look for a problem.
Yes.
It's kind of like a relationship. Like if you decide to be in a relationship with your partner, you don't say, I trust you, and then look at their phone every 2 seconds. It's like with your body, it's the same. Like, I'm trusting this relationship and this connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you're feeling compelled to look through a phone or something, then there's a red flag. You know what I mean? I love what you just said, for sure, where it's like that's not something you routinely would do if you trusted someone.
That's right.
So why do we do that with our babies? And just going full in. If my baby guided me to something, I would listen, absolutely. But otherwise, and I truly even believe if we're supposed to know the gender, we will.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, like...
Did you get to... I was never given any insight on that with my babies. I tried to... Because I do readings and I do psychic readings and tarot. And for myself, I was like, well, come on, tell me the date. Tell me the date the baby's coming. Tell me what sex they are. And it was like, nope.
Yes.
You're not supposed to know.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. That's so funny how similar you and I are because So as I was... pregnant, I was connected. There was a girl energy for sure. I know that I was connecting with, but every time I connected specifically to my baby and I asked, it came so clear you're not supposed to know.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really strange because I'm like, but I know there's this like girl energy I'm feeling, but when I ask, it's so like no, you're not supposed to know, and it like humbled me so quick every single time.
Yeah.
And
that's the ultimate trust. You have
really
to wait
is.
until the moment.
Yes. And so I'm someone that loves to know things. So it really put me in this space of ultimate any possibility.
Surrender.
Like, yes, it could be twins. It could be boy twins. It could be girl. It could be anything. And I loved being in that place of anything could be, which I never would have been able to otherwise if I knew.
Yeah.
And I surprised myself with loving this unknowing.
Yeah.
Loving that part of me because no other part of my life have I ever loved not knowing something.
And doesn't that prepare you for birth?
Yes.
Because birth as an entity is like, you don't get to know me. I am uncapturable. I am the unknown and you have to just receive me as I am.
Yes.
It's like the perfect preparation.
Yes.
To receive her.
You really do start realizing these different initiations that are your baby is perfectly preparing you.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling and you're getting that answer of you're not supposed to know, let that be.
And I think that's where we can see the two paradigms of the medical system wants to know and it can't. Mm-hmm. That's why it's still not succeeding in however they're supposed to. Well, they are succeeding in one way, but they're not improving on birth. You can't.
Yeah.
But that's how we see the two different, like they're so uncomfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
There's like no way. We have to know.
Yes.
But they still don't know, even with all their testing.
Even like think of genetic testing, right? Where 85% of the time it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like
even ultrasounds and the measurements.
It's crazy.
The statistics are ridiculous. Yeah.
And it really is us grasping this concept of being able to control something.
Yeah.
When really what it is, it's further away.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting too is for a lot of people, they think, well, I can't connect with my baby until I do an ultrasound and I can see that baby's there. To me, that just shows how disconnected we really are.
Truly, it's literally sound waves bounced off onto it's not actually your baby.
Yes.
It's like sound waves bounced off onto an image. Like it's not a photo of, And
everyone looks the same because we all look the same when we're bounced off, a silhouette.
I think the heartbreaking thing is as well, like when you understand ultrasound and how loud it is for a baby.
Yes.
And, and maybe I did the same with my daughter because I did have a few ultrasounds, but they're kicking around and they're moving for the ultrasound. No, it's so loud.
Yes.
It's so loud in there.
And that's trauma. It's another form of trauma that we're inducing on these babies of, again, I will say anything can be healed. I always want to preface that, but it's trauma, and it is another way that we're disassociating babies in the womb even.
Yeah. Yes, disconnecting mom from baby.
And even baby from themselves. If they're trying to disassociate from what's happening in that moment of ultrasound, they're literally kicking you away. And it's so sad how we've made that a joke of like, they just wiggle around. And it's like, is that not a sign?
I know, but the programming is thick. Like, and for any woman listening, we have all grown up in a time where we've been programmed. I was whatever. I don't want to say asleep. I don't like that term, but I was deeply conditioned and programmed, and I had to unshackle myself as well.
Yeah. I do. Yes. No, I feel that deeply. I even want to like point out this concept of ultrasound is used, these sound waves, to break up tissue, to break up cancer. Mm-hmm. What is that doing? It actually sterilizes men. You can actually use it as a birth control.
Yeah.
What is that doing to unborn babies?
Yeah.
Having ultrasound directed right at their forming genitals.
And then we can go down the Doppler. Years ago, I shared a post just talking about how home birth midwives would have, the brother or sister holding the Doppler on their sibling, within their mother's belly, and thinking about there actually can be more dangerous because they're different waves that go through, and they're continuous sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Doppler like even I don't even know how many times more potent
Yes.
than ultrasound is even, right?
Yeah.
So people that are buying the Dopplers to always be connecting with their baby like daily, sometimes it's like, oh, they have no when you could just like literally put your hands on your belly and connect, you know? But again, everyone's going on their own journey on how they have to come back to that,
Yeah. And I think our communities have realized those things. I think they've realized that and realized the dangers, and they're on to the next thing. What I would really like to know, Veda, what does it look like when a mother comes to you and she is pregnant? Is that when they usually come to you? Like, this baby's guiding me to be born free. How does that look after that?
Yeah. Oh, great question. I get a slew. I get all realms, right? I either get people I'm preparing for pregnancy. A lot of it, I would say mostly I'm pregnant, I'm being guided to this, or I've just had my baby. I haven't registered them yet, but I've been waiting to find what the answer is, and I found this, Really what that looks like is you're creating your own private documents that are accepted, again, by the government. Just like we can create contracts with the government, we can create private contracts that the government does honor. Mm-hmm. So you are creating your own private documents. Like we talked about, these baptism, baby naming certificates, these family Bibles, you're creating your own affidavits. You're creating all these different things that are private documents that do replace the birth certificate, and then using that, and I show other people how to get the passport without the birth certificate, which then opens another slew of opportunities for babies. People don't realize that a passport alone is really what's going to be the opportunity opener for if they choose they want to work corporate, that's their choice. If they choose they want to get a job, get a driver's license, all of those things, they can do that. But with those two things too, your baby can't even choose if they want to get a birth certificate because you've set them up with a foundation that they can make any choice at their free will.
They have a choice then. Yeah.
Yes.
And I just wanted to quickly touch on marriage.
Yes.
This is so interesting. You shared something about it maybe yesterday, I think. So I've been with my partner for 17 years, and I just have always had this refusal to allow the government to solidify my relationship. Just always been within me. And we're both of the same thinking. But have you done the same thing?
Great question. So I married my husband in 2016. I didn't know any of this stuff back then. So we got legally married. We did the whole bit. I didn't know if I could go back, I would have done it differently. Now I would just put it in my family Bible and know that that is a lawful record. That is a contract between you, your partner, and your creator. Done. You're married. That's truly all you need to do. Yep. But I didn't realize then that when I got a marriage license that made a contract between me and my husband and the state. And that actually was the reason why the government gets to decide how you split your assets or how you split your children if you choose divorce, different things like that. I didn't realize you made them a party in your contract. I did. So me and my husband are actually in the process of annulling our marriage to the state, or annulling our contract with the state so that we can just be privately married. So those that start from the beginning, it's a little easier.
Yeah.
Like, I love that you just had that innate knowing then. Why would I need someone else? Why would I need Big Brother to tell me that I can be married and still have, people see these benefits of being married are like tax tax write-offs. You get cheaper taxes, but that's a whole other slew of, that's a whole other rabbit hole of you actually, first of all, it's a voluntary system. You don't need, there are ways to get 100% refund on your taxes without getting married or contracting your babies.
Yep.
It's just interesting that they use those incentives to get people to contract with the state.
Yes.
So
amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, private marriages all the way.
So where can everybody find you, Veda?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Veda, VEDA.revival, REVIVAL. I have a YouTube as well, same handle, but I also have a website. If you want to check out my website, it's vedarevival.com. Yeah, I'd love to connect with any one of you listening. That, like, honestly, nothing brings me more joy than connecting with other people on the same path, the same community. I love what you've created, Anita. Your amazing community of people that hold the same frequency. So I'm just so grateful to have connected with you.
Me too.
And now I get to have you as a sister in my tribe. So
yay. Thank you, Veda. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me.